There is the story of a young reporter at a train station who spots a Buddhist monk and decides to interview him. He asks the monk, "Sir, what would you say is the world's biggest problem? Is it global warming, world hunger, corruption?" The monk smiles and replies, "Let me ask you something first. Who are you?" "I'm a reporter," answers the young man. "No, that is your profession," says the monk. "Who are you?" "I'm John Smith," the reporter answers. "No, that is your name," says the monk. "Who are you?" "I'm a human being," the young man hesitates. "No, that is your species," says the monk. "Who are you?" This goes on for some time until finally the reporter gives in and says, All right, it appears I don't know who I am." Then the monk says to him, "This is the world's biggest problem." In this video we will look at how the Buddha answered that very same question, the question that eventually led him to enlightenment, the fundamental question that faces each one of us: who am I? It is on the nature of the self that Buddhism gives the most controversial theory, or rather non-theory, in the history of religion. You're not your body, the Buddha says, and most other religions would agree, but he also claims you're not an immortal soul. You're not consciousness, you're not feeling, not mind, not will, not some primal cosmic substance. But, according to the Buddha, it is also not true to say that you are nothing, that you do not exist. Things get even more complicated when you consider the doctrine of reincarnation. I mean, if there is reincarnation, there must be an I that passes from one life into another, right? Someone who inherits good and bad karma. Wrong. Throughout his life, the Buddha preached reincarnation as a fact of life, and yet he insisted that no self, no I, reincarnates. In Pali, this teaching came to be known as Anattā, the teaching of no self. Anattā is a bizarre doctrine, and yet the Buddha said that to understand it means to become fully enlightened. To know what you are, the Buddha claimed, and to know what you are not, is the key to ending suffering once and for all. So, considering this video might be your chance at enlightenment for the day, you might want to pay attention. To understand the Buddha's no-self teaching, we need to get a bit technical for a minute. We need to talk about the 5 Khandhas. The Buddha's path to awakening involved a punishing period of asceticism and harsh mental training. At one point during his searching, he sustained himself on 1 grain of rice per day. The stories tell us he had become so thin he could feel his spine by putting his hand on his stomach. He went on to study under the greatest meditation teachers of his time, and he surpassed them one by one in their own game. However, the Buddha would always move on, disappointed he had not found what he was seeking, the end of suffering. The Buddha eventually went on to disapprove of extreme asceticism. Yet there is one great benefit he gained from his harsh training, and that is that he had gradually transformed his mind into a weapon. The powers of concentration and mental endurance he developed allowed him to study his mind in a way few of us would consider possible. After years of observing his consciousness, the Buddha discovered something that would change the course of history. He discovered that what he was used to calling his self, his I, is nothing but a combination of 5 components, 5 aggregates, the 5 Khandhas. The usual translation of the Pali word Khandha is aggregate. You can also think of it as meaning part or component. In simple terms, the 5 Khandhas are the constituents of our conscious experience. They're the building blocks of reality as we experience it subjectively. The 5 Khandhas are the following: form, feeling, cognition, mental formations, and consciousness. To understand how these 5 work, we have to adopt a slightly different way of thinking than how we normally see reality. Let's use a simple allegory for this purpose. Think about a video playing on an RGB screen, like this footage of Marilyn Monroe. When you look at these images, they immediately mean something to you. They immerse you. You're looking at a person, a strikingly beautiful woman. You can see the color and fabric of her clothes, her body language, her facial expressions, her aura of playful youthfulness. A part of you knows you're just watching a video, but another, more instinctual part is immediately captured by the reality of what you're seeing. A part of you sees the person, Marilyn Monroe. However, think for a minute about the nature of these images. Think about the screen on which you're watching them. On the level of the screen, this video is simply a composition of frames. Each frame is made up of pixels, and each pixel is a combination of 3 colors only: red, green, and blue. We can say these are the 3 aggregates of the video. All the complexity of the video, all the information it gives you, and the emotions it produces, these all come from the careful choreography of just 3 components: red, blue, and green. There is in fact no Marilyn Monroe in front of you. This is literally a trick of the light. A clever pattern of reds, greens, and blues fools you into thinking you're seeing Marilyn Monroe. It fools you into admiring her beauty, into perhaps feeling attracted to her. Well, you can probably see where this is going. The Buddha argued that subjective experience is like that Marilyn Monroe footage. The feeling of I is like a magic trick that only appears real when you're not looking closely at it. If you do look closely, the Buddha claimed, you will see that there is nothing in your experience that can be a self. There is just a very, very elaborate symphony of 5 aggregates. The illusion of Marilyn Monroe appears just from a pattern of reds, greens, and blues. So too, the illusion I am appears from the pattern of the 5 Khandhas. These 5 are, again, form, feeling, cognition, mental formations, and consciousness. Form covers everything physical and visual: shapes, colors, textures, and so on. Feeling includes everything that feels pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Things like boredom, excitement, sadness, pleasure, pain, etc. Cognition covers all thoughts, memories, future plans. It also covers ideas. The idea of what a flower is, of what the color pink is, of what a good life is. It also includes the idea of who and what you are. Mental formations include all desires and emotions, likes and dislikes, everything that moves you on an emotional level. And finally, consciousness accounts for the very fact of awareness. Thomas Nagel gave consciousness this clever definition: if there is something it is like to be you, then you're conscious. Now let's see how these 5 aggregates apply to your sense of self. Ask yourself this: can you really find anything within your experience that falls outside these 5 categories? And more importantly, can you find yourself anywhere within the 5 aggregates? The body, the feelings, the thoughts, the desires, and the consciousness you perceive, you call your own. But if they are your own, then who are you? Who is the owner of your body? Who is feeling your feelings? Who is the thinker of your thoughts? Who desires your desires? Who is aware of your consciousness? The answer to all these questions seems so intuitive, so obvious, so clear. It is me, I, myself am that one. It is not even a rational conclusion, but a gut feeling that you exist, that you're somebody, a self. Well, it is exactly when we reach this gut feeling that the Buddha says, hold on, you're not paying attention. Here is how the Buddha saw the world. When the 5 aggregates come together, the unenlightened say a person is born. When the aggregates fall apart, the unenlightened say a person has died. And when the aggregates disperse and then come back together again in a different pattern, the unenlightened say a person has reincarnated, a person is reborn. However, the Buddha tells us there is no person to be found anywhere. The Buddha had no issue with using the word person or the word self as a conventional term. He knew we need such words in order to orient ourselves in the world. The Buddha would agree that, by convention, 10-year-old Marilyn Monroe is the same person as 20-year-old Marilyn Monroe. But on the level of ultimate reality, there is no Marilyn Monroe. There is no Buddha, no me, and there is no you too. There are just different streams of the 5 aggregates flowing in time, falling apart and then coming back together. I am one stream, you're another, but ultimately we're both just water flowing in slightly different ways. But since the patterns of our 5 aggregates are so complex, and since the ordinary human mind is so distracted, the aggregates fall into a terrible misconception that they are a person, that they are somehow one thing, and that the world and everyone else is another. The Buddha claimed that every model of the self you can have would be a mistaken view, and it would always end up being a form of grasping at one of the 5 aggregates. You say the self dies along with the physical body? Well, you're grasping at form. You say the self is that inside you which feels good or bad? You're grasping at feeling. You say, I think, therefore I am. Well, sorry René, you're simply grasping at cognition. Those who say, I am my choices and free will, grasp at mental formations. And those who see the self as pure awareness, grasp at the aggregate of consciousness. The Buddha claimed none of these can be the self. Why? He gave 2 main reasons. First, none of the aggregates can be the self since you can control none of them. You cannot make your body healthy by simply wishing to, nor can you suddenly make yourself feel calm when you're actually quite anxious. You can't even choose what your next thought is going to be. Or rather, you can choose it, but you cannot choose what you choose. The 5 aggregates change according to conditions and causes which are external to them. Therefore, none of the aggregates can be ourself. Second, the aggregates come and go. They cannot be the self because they are impermanent. One minute you think and feel one way, and the next this changes completely. One day your body is young and agile, but before you know it, it hurts to bend down and tie your shoes. If your self was one of the aggregates, then it too must be changing all the time. But then it would mean one self must end one moment, and another self must begin the next. This is clearly not how our gut feeling tells us our self is like. Deep down, we feel we're individuals. We feel that though we may change and develop, we have some permanent core inside us, a core that persists through time. Clearly, none of the aggregates can be that core. And here we come to the big bad guy of Buddhism, Dukkha. This Pali word is a very general term, translated variously as suffering, unhappiness, or unsatisfactoriness. It is the feeling, no matter how weak or strong, that your experience could be better, that something is not okay. Well, the Buddha claimed that his whole teaching had just one purpose. Like the whole ocean has just one taste, that of salt, so too the Buddha claimed that his every teaching has the same taste, the taste of liberation. To be liberated means to be free from dukkha. It means that to you, everything has become completely, utterly, and irreducibly okay. And what did the Buddha say is the number 1 reason for dukkha? It is the gut feeling which tells us, this is me, this is mine, this is myself. It is the feeling of I, which the Buddha called grasping. You see, the Buddha was not a philosopher. He never philosophized for philosophy's sake. His every word, every action, and every teaching was laser focused on one goal, the end of dukkha. It is important to understand that the Buddha did not teach the no-self doctrine as a philosopher. He saw himself rather as a doctor of the human spirit. We could even call him the first psychologist in history. The Buddha saw people live their lives in complete ignorance of ultimate reality. We observe our body, feelings, thoughts, desires, and consciousness, and we call them our own. We grasp at them and become attached to them. We accumulate possessions, we chase after social rank, after relationships, experiences, wealth. But fate inevitably takes from us all we have accumulated. Little by little, time and change take from us all we think belongs to us. Finally, they take from us our very lives. How much pain, how much suffering there is in this life for one who says of the things she loses, "This is me, this is mine, this is myself." And not only does one suffer for a lifetime, but over thousands and hundreds of thousands of lifetimes. In one terrifying quote from the Pali canon, the Buddha tells his disciples the following words: "While on this long journey you wander aimlessly from birth to birth, there have been more tears shed for you than there is water in the 4 oceans." The Buddha saw this as the sickness of the human spirit. He never wished to moralize us by pointing out our ignorance and grasping. On the contrary, he spoke of these things out of great compassion, out of a deep understanding of just how much each of us is fated to suffer. And yet, there are good news. The Buddha knew from personal experience that if we see reality as it really is, if we see the self as an illusion created from a pattern of separate processes, if we are to internalize this understanding so that we know it not only in our heads but have it as a gut feeling, if we manage to truly, completely extinguish our feeling of I, our grasping at life, if we extinguish these like the Buddha did, well, then we will see everything as it truly is. We will know in our hearts that everything is okay, that there is nothing to gain and nothing to lose. This is the peace that passes understanding. The Sanskrit word for this is nirvana. Of course, this is much easier said than done, but it is not impossible. Gautama Siddhartha did it and became known as the Buddha, literally meaning the one who awoke. All of Buddhism sprang from this one realization. There was a human being, just like you and me, who one day made the most radical discovery in human history. He cultivated his mind to its maximum capacity and then pointed it back on itself. What he found changed him forever and inspired millions of people throughout the world to bow down to him in reverence. Ultimately, you cannot understand the doctrine of no-self intellectually, certainly not from a YouTube video. This is a teaching that will require your complete dedication if you wish to truly get it. If you wish to dissolve that gut feeling inside you which says, "I am." In fact, many people mistake the Buddha's message for saying that the self doesn't exist. But the Buddha never said this. In fact, he claimed that to say "I do not exist" is just as misleading as saying "I am." Why? Because then you're still thinking in terms of I. Anattā, which many people translate as the theory of no-self, should more rightly be translated as the no theory of self. To understand this teaching means to completely transform your outlook on the world in a way that is difficult to describe in words. In fact, there is no reason to believe that a person who understands Anattā can explain it to the rest of us who don't. Yet, whatever the Buddha realized when he meditated on his self, freed him from all suffering. The kind of person he became after his enlightenment must have truly been a sight to behold. Wherever he went and to whomever he spoke, the Buddha attracted followers and worshippers. And whoever approached him, whoever wished to know what the root of all suffering is, the Buddha would guide them again and again to the same question. He would ask them, "Who are you?" Thank you for watching. As you could probably tell from the messy editing and voice recording, this is my first video essay ever, but I'm excited to make more and better videos in the future. So if you enjoy this content, please make sure to like the video and subscribe to the Secret to Secret channel, and I will make sure to make more and better content in the future. Also, I've put some helpful links and resources in the video description in case you'd like to learn more about Anattā, the 5 Khandhas, and everything around that. So thank you for watching and stay tuned for more. Bye.